Lee MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. It's an honour to serve under your stewardship and chairmanship, and I'd like to extend my thanks to the Honourable Member for Cardiff South and Penarth for securing what is an incredibly important debate. My constituency is Middlesbrough, and that has the highest concentration of those seeking asylum of anywhere in the United Kingdom. And in December 2015 figures, we had 1,042 asylum seekers, way in excess of the cluster limit. The Minister may say that that is reduced by some short numbers, but those numbers are very clear, and in fact in some of our communities there's an asylum seeker for every 18 residents, and that's something I hope the Minister will take on board. But we have a proud history, Mr. Stringer, of compassion and support, and it's something I'm terrifically proud of. We do have Justice First, we have the churches, we have the Methodist Action Project, we have the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, other faith groups and charities and individuals. And there's a fantastic network of love and compassion that underpins all of that, and I am delighted to celebrate it. Yeah. But it's the Red Doors issue that brought this matter into focus, and I don't criticise Andrew Norfolk of the Times for his excellent piece of work, but I don't make the charge that the local contractor deliberately set out to mark the properties out, to mark those seeking sanctuary. It was clearly known to them. They were their properties. They painted them red, and for them to plead ignorance of there being an issue is just indicative of the arrogance about that characterises how they've gone about their business. It wasn't deliberate, so let's repaint them other colours and move on. But what the Times has done is bring the whole issue into the light. And G4S are the main contractor in my region, and they've no record of running housing contracts, yet they still get the contract, and the local subcontractor, Stuart Monk of Joemast, has them over a barrel. And he held out for the best deal he could extract out of them, because he had the properties and they didn't, and he's made a mint. G4S say that they don't make any money out of the contract. Well, diddums, Mr. Stringer. If they don't like it, let's bring the contract to an end and get G4S out of the picture as quickly as possible. They've demonstrated as a company that they should be nowhere near government public service business. Just look at what they did in our prisons, and we only have to cast our mind back to the dreadful fraud that they perpetrated on the taxpayer over the prison tagging contract. They are not a fit and proper company, and the sooner they are out of our national life, the better. The arrogance and contempt that characterises so much of the behaviour of G4S was never more evident than it was when their director, John Whitman, recently appeared before the Home Affairs Select Committee. He quite deliberately tried to leave the committee with the impression that the local authority were totally engaged with the process throughout. Mr. Stringer, that's just simply not true. Indeed, that's the problem. The local authority have no standing in the business of housing asylum seekers. They've been cut out of the loop. And for Mr. Whitman to suggest to the committee that they are somehow involved in the approval of properties and then involved in inspection of them, I trust the Minister will speak to the Chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, because I think that was a gross misleading of Parliament, and I hope that the action follows. But I ask Mr. Stringer, what on earth are we doing as a country? Why does the government think that by responding to a human crisis, the right thing to do is to create a structure that's all about making money for private companies, profits not created by handing over taxpayers' money? There's something wrong here. Of course, our constituencies want to carry on providing succour and support for our sisters and brothers, but this government simply abuses our good nature. That support and sanctuary should come with a commitment to support the local services that have to respond. My town has been hammered with the lunacy of austerity, and my local authority, which has suffered cut after cut, so that I now begin to question whether to even begin to discharge the barest of statutory functions. And what do we learn today on the back of the abolition of the rate supports grants, which will cripple communities up and down the country? In The Guardian this morning, it's laid bare. Again, the Tory government punishes Labour councils and gives support for their Tory boroughs. It's partial, inequitable and grossly discriminatory, and behaviour ill-becoming of a party that purports to govern for the entire country. It's beneath the contempt of the shires and the city bankers to trouble themselves with such matters. Leave it to the Northerners, the Scots and the Welsh. They in the cosy worlds don't want to be troubled with any of this. It escapes no one's attention, Mr Stringer, that in the Prime Minister's own constituency you will not find a single person seeking sanctuary, but it's areas like ours that receive the favourable transitional local government finance settlement relief, and the areas that take asylum seekers get nothing at all. The unfairness is stark, and perhaps the Prime Minister's mother should write him a letter. Understandably, the Tories will say, look to the regions, look to the Labour heartlands, they aren't going to protest, they won't complain, or we can get away with it. Well, therein lies the dilemma. We are proud of our compassion and the welcome given to strangers in our communities. Many of us and the people we represent have been strangers themselves. We will try to recognise our good fortune and be generous to those who have not been so fortunate. And yes, we won't walk by on the other side of the road. We will try to treat people as we like to be treated ourselves, but we look to the government to behave in a patriotic, fair and balanced way. But that means we respond generously as a nation, and we don't just leave it to those parts of the country who are facing some immensely difficult times already. We look proudly at the history as a nation. We rightly mark the 71st anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, and we rightly remember the kinder transport of the 1930s being a positive response to the crisis faced by thousands of children across Europe. But it pains me, Mr Stringer, to hear the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland describing the modern-day kinder transportees as a bunch of migrants. I want better from our country's Prime Minister, and so do millions of our fellow citizens. I'm afraid it lays bare the true thinking of this cruel and pernicious government. If every town and city in the United Kingdom welcomed 5% of the distressed and persecuted people that my wonderful town of Middlesbrough does, then nobody would even notice they were here. But what happens? It's been turned into a profit-making, value-extracting exercise for the likes of Stuart Monk and his Jomas to make millions of pounds of profit. The Minister is a decent man, and I look forward to further discussions with him about how these issues might be progressed. But I did meet with him in November 2014, and many of the issues that are being raised now were raised with him then, and I regret to note that there's been absolutely no progress to date. I hope that he takes on board the comments of honourable members from across the United Kingdom today and accedes to the request for a formal review of this rotten contract, and let's start behaving properly. Thank you.